Greetings everyone, welcome back. This class hour we are going to work on substitution. All right, substitution a lot of you guys said was the toughest one, so I definitely need your undivided attention. And reminder, I always post everything in Google Classroom, so I will also post these videos. That way if you're working with your parents or another student or tutor, you can review and study using these videos. All right, let's take a look at substitution. Please remain in your assigned seats, be respectful. Don't leave to work unless approved by Mrs. Rutten or Mr. Ananda. Pay attention, and then again, this is a way to study before our unit test. This time we're not going to just do the first three, so we're going to jump around a little bit. Let's start off with number 8. So jump down to number 8. I'm going to write out the steps. If you have the steps or don't want to number them, that's fine, but I just want to review the steps. So step 1 is to get a variable by itself. In this case, we already have a y by itself, so that's handy. Step 2, substitute the expression into the other equation. So in this case, I'm going to take the other equation, and where there's a y, I'm going to have a gap. And where there's a gap, I'm going to put that expression. So I'm substituting the expression in for my y value because that's what it's equal to is y. Step 3, solve for that variable. In this case, I have only x's, so let's solve for x. First, I'm going to distribute that 3. So a positive 3 times a negative 8 gives me a negative 24x. I need your calculators here. If I have a 3 times a 37, I end up with a negative 111. Still have that equals 4. Next step, I need to get x by itself, so I'm going to add that 111 to the other side, which leaves me with 115. On the left-hand side, I'm going to combine like terms. I have a 1x minus a 24x, which leaves me with a negative 23x, equal to that 115 still. Definitely need your calculators here, I'm assuming. I'm going to divide both sides by that negative 23. And I end up with x is equal to positive divided by a negative is a negative. It turns out to be a really nice, easy number of negative 5. All right, let's jump to step 4. Step 4 says to substitute that value into either equation to find the other variable. I'm going to choose the second equation purely because it's smaller numbers. So where there's an x, I'm going to put a gap. And where there's a gap, I'm going to put my x value of negative 5. Now I don't have anything to distribute to solve for this variable, so I'm actually just going to subtract that negative 5 over. What is subtracting a negative change to again? Hopefully you are thinking addition. That leaves me with a 3y equals 9. Last step, divide both sides by 3. 9 divided by 3 is positive 3. Last step, take your answer and write it in coordinate point form. So my x value is negative 5 and my y value is 3. On all of these, you should get nice clean numbers in the end. What I mean by that is you might end up with fractions in your work. That's okay. But your answers should not have fractions or decimals. So keep that in mind. If you end up with a fraction, as your answer, something's wrong. Let's scoot over to number 9. First step is to get a variable by itself. Well, I already have y by itself, so step 1 is done. Step 2, I'm going to take my other equation, and where there is a y, I'm going to put a gap. Where there's a gap, I'm going to put my expression. So I have a negative 1/2 x plus a 3. I'm substituting that expression in for my y value. Step 3, solve for that variable. I have only x, so I want to solve for x. First thing I need to do is distribute. If I distribute, that's 6. 6 times negative 1/2. Well, it's definitely going to be a negative number. What is 1/2 of 6? In this case, I end up at a 3x. 6 times the 3 gets me to an 18. And then I still have the equals 18. If I subtract 18 from both sides, I end up with a 0 on the right side. And if I take a look, if I combine like terms, 3x minus 3x is also 0. Is 0, 0 a true statement? It is. So if I end up with a number equal to itself, how do I write that answer? What does that mean? That means there's infinite solutions. Meaning if I was to graph it, I would actually end up with the same line. So just a quick reminder, if you end up with a number equal to itself, that's infinite solutions. If you end up with a number not equal to itself, that's when it's no solution. Okay, so just a refresher that you might have an answer to that look like that as well. All right, let's jump over to number 10. As we take a look at number 10, they are in standard form. I am supposed to use substitution though. So my first thought was elimination, but I want you to practice substitution. So step 1 says to get a variable by itself. Well, out of these 4 variables, I'm going to choose this one because it doesn't have a number with it. So it makes it easier to get by itself. So to get that y by itself, all I need to do is subtract 12x. That leaves me with y equals negative 12x plus 47. All right, step 2. We are going to substitute my expression into the other equation. So I'm going to write the other equation that I haven't used yet, and where there's a y, I'm going to put a gap. Where there's a gap, I'm going to put my expression. Step 3 is to solve for that variable. So I'm going to get x by itself. First, I need to distribute that negative 9. We'll end up with some big numbers, but that's okay. Just go with those numbers. Negative 9 times negative 12 is positive 108. Negative 9 times 47, ooh, it's a big number. We're going to have a negative 423. I'm going to combine like terms first. So I end up with 113x minus the 423 equals the 29. Next, I want to add 423 to the other side. So 423 plus 29 is 452. Don't forget that x there. Last, to get x by itself, to isolate the x, we're going to divide both sides by 113. Kind of crazy numbers to look at, but we end up with a solution value of x equals 4. Easy answers. You should always get an easy answer on this particular worksheet. Let's jump to step 5. Step 4 is to plug that 4 into either equation to find your y value. I'm going to use the second equation just because y is by itself. So wherever there's an x, I'm going to put a 4, write down everything else. I need to solve for y, so I'm going to take 12 times 4 first, which gets me to 48. I want to get y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 48 from both sides. That leaves me with y equals, what is 47 minus 48? And -1. So as we take a look, we got a nice clean answer that I want to write in coordinate form. That's your step 5. My x value is 4, my y value is -1. So this example I chose because you had to do step 1 and get y by itself. My suggestion is if you want to challenge yourself, I would start on the back of the worksheet as you work through these, so that you're working with some of the ones that have a little more work. That would be great study practice for the test. All right, another reminder, same as before. Our goal is to have an excellent behavior report, and you want to work on this worksheet. If you finish this one, make sure you finished all of them. Also, reminder, if you work through these and do a diligent job and try your best, I won't necessarily make them do. If there is a behavior to report, then I will make them do. They will be homework in the grade book. So use these to study with. And again, I will post this video on Google Classroom if you need the extra assistance. So be good, do well, and we'll see you soon.